screen. Okay, let me know what you can see.
Yes, great.
All right, can see. Okay, so thank you for joining today's session, everyone. So I hope everyone is, joining from somewhere else, and hope everyone is safe. So the today's session, I'm going to discuss about application modernization with Azure. So this is a little bit of a kind of a extended session for my previous sessions that I did. I think I had done in April. So if you couldn't, join the previous session, just go to the YouTube channel and check out my the previous, session. So because a little bit of, background knowledge would be really good for you to understand this session. So in this session, as I said, we're gonna discuss about how you can leverage PaaS services as well as function as services or if this for the Azure to make cloud native applications. So before we get started, let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm Dilip Rajapaksha. So I'm actually working at Tribe Singapore. So I'm a partner technical specialist, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP and MCT, and also Microsoft certified Azure Solution Architect. So if you have any questions or any doubts, regarding my session or anything technically in architectural perspective or from the developer perspective in Azure, just ping me from Twitter, or maybe you can go to my LinkedIn account and just follow me and then send me a message anytime. If you need any help, just let me know. So today's session outline is going to be like this. So I'm going to define a little bit of digital transformation and cloud journey. This was also discussed in my previous session on April. And then kind of different strategies that you can use to move to the cloud. And then I'm going to discuss about migration versus modernization. What is migration and what is modernization? So in the previous session that I said, it was about migration. In this session, I'm going to discuss about modernization. And then I'm gonna give you kind of a demo how you can use PaaS services as well as FaaS services. And in this session, I'm not gonna deep dive into a lot of microservices and Kubernetes services, Docker containers, all those stuff. In a in a future session, I'll think I'll be doing another session regarding all those things. This is the fundamental level how you can modernize very quickly without a huge depth of knowledge to in Azure in modernization. So, excuse. So in digital transformation and cloud journey, so I'm gonna discuss a little bit about this one. What is digital transformation and cloud journey? So people everywhere in the world now is transforming digitally. With the pandemic situation. According to Satya Nadella, also 2 years of change happen in 2 months, right? So very quickly everyone change, to digital technologies. So one of the good things that you need to remember is actually in a business, any business nowadays is actually the change, right? Is very constant. So because excuse. So you can see that the current situation with the pandemic, a lot of businesses has to be closed, and then we had to go to lockdown, and the business continuity was in a kind of a question, right? So because of that, digital technology is the only one who can survive. Someone else using digital technology can only survive in this environment. So that is one of the things that you have to remember all the time. And another thing that you have to remember is actually the innovation. So the innovation is the only way that you can actually survive in a competition. So for an example, if you are a small business, let's say for an example, brick and mortar business. So in the business, if you don't have any innovations in mobile app, purchases, or maybe commerce purchasing, applications. So what will happen in this kind of pandemic situation? You will not be able to get any businesses, and you will get bankrupt, right? So the innovation is really important when it's come to today's environment, and the modern IT infrastructure is actually given by all these cloud platforms, including Azure and other cloud infrastructures, so are really important, and they are giving you the foundation for the successful organization. And then innovation is actually very quick, and you can see that innovation should be very quick, because within 2 months and within 6 months of time, everything change in the world, right? And it is it should be very secure, and as well as it should be very scalable. For an example, think about Teams application. So how many users are using at the moment? So billions of millions of users are using concurrently. So it should be very scalable. Otherwise, you can't serve your customers. And other than that, collaboration is more important. So the collaboration is one of the good things that everyone is, learning about these days, because everyone is working from home and we need to work collaboratively, not just like in office. We are, doing everything, from remote locations. So when you are doing collaboration both internally within the organization, with the partners or the customers outside the world, so it is really important in this cloud journey. So those are kind of things that you need to remember why we are moving to the cloud, and what is the digital transformation, and why we, go with this cloud journey. So this diagram is very popular that I also showed this in my previous session. So early days of, computing, we had on-premises infrastructure, and then we moved to the cloud. So this is entirely in the cloud. So I discussed about infrastructure as a service, in the previous session. So where you leverage lift and shift, and you can migrate entire workload in on-premises environment to any cloud platform using lift and shift. And then this is also known as rehost. This is called migration. You have to remember the word. It is migration, right? Not application modernization. So we can quickly come from on-prem to any cloud with rehosting or migration, or maybe what you call as lift and shift. Other than that, you can go ahead with this line. You can see there's a small line I have drawn here. So this side is going to be application modernization. So I have drawn this line because if you compare with modernization versus migration, there's a huge difference. So when it's come to innovation. So I'll show you a kind of a diagram why I'm saying that. And when you are migrating, you use rehosting, but when you are modernization, you may need to change your existing application. So the application might be, you may need to refactor your code, which is actually going to suitable for the cloud infrastructure. And then probably you might need to, re-architecture the entire, cloud, entire infrastructure that you are using, because you're coming from on-prem, and then you are going to a different environment in cloud, and probably you need to do kind of re-architecturing, and maybe and you may have to do a rebuild of your application in order to host it in the cloud. And probably in some cases you may have to do all these three things in order to move to the cloud with cloud native applications. So in the cloud native modernization, we are talking about platform as a service and function as a service and containerization, microservices. All those buzzwords that you are hearing today is actually what you call as modernization. And other than that, we have software as a service application. So it is, also kind of a way that you can modernize your entire application by replacing any of the application you have in your on-premises environment. So why you need to move to the cloud? So I think everyone knows why you should move to the cloud. Mostly, it is the cost, as well as the high availability, elasticity, and agility, and disaster recovery. So those are some of the reasons. For an example, one example I could give you from the current situation. So if you're running on premises environment and you have limited capabilities or limited infrastructure, let's say you are a company who is actually giving kind of a video conferencing software, and then you have let's say 100, let's say 10,000 customers at the in 2019, and with the pandemic situation you get a lot of sales, and you got 1 million people, right, and 1 million users daily. And then what will happen, you have to actually scale your entire infrastructure. But when you are in the on-premises environment, you have to purchase all these servers, and put all these every infrastructures together, and get a lot of money flowing. There's a huge capital involvement, and then time involved in if you are scaling your on-premises environment. But in cloud, you have the scalability, and with that situation, with the pandemic, you can directly scale your entire infrastructure without any burden. So those are a couple of reasons that why you are moving to the cloud. So you can see there are a set of things available here. And if you are moving to the cloud, as I discuss about this later in my previous session also. So the migration or the modernization is a kind of application, modernization is kind of a decision where it should come from business end, because the business should decide when you need to move to the cloud, and after that the technical people come and decide where to move and what kind of ways that you are going to use. Because as I said earlier, the business, what I'm saying business related, is actually from 10,000 users to 1 million users. So it is a kind of a sales transaction. So when business decides to do that, it should inform to the technical people in order to make sure that the capacity is, capacity required is actually enough for the customers, right? And then this is actually comes with couple of questions. So if business wants to move to the cloud, they need to decide, those, they need to ask these questions. Why, what are the driving factors of the business to move to the cloud? So one driving factor with the previous example that I said. So they are going to scale up their entire environment with 1 million users, and because of that they need to move to the cloud. And then what is the organization long-term growth strategy? So that is one of the things that a lot of organization don't focus still, right? So that's why a lot of people in on-premises environment, they don't think in the future they will get 1 million users. So they don't have good growth strategy. So because of that, they don't understand what will happen in the future, and then they keep in the on-premises and they don't grow. So suddenly with the pandemic situation, they will get a lot of sales and they will get a lot of opportunity. They will lose that entire market. So those are the problems that organizations that have nowadays. And then you need to ask the question, why we are actually moving to the cloud now? What's the reason that we are moving to the cloud now? So those are the questions that you need to ask in terms of business level before you move to the cloud. And these are the couple of things that I discussed, in my previous session. When you are moving to the cloud, we can use migration strategies. So we can rehost, or maybe you can replace, and also you can refactor, re-architecture, or rebuild. So where platform as a service is coming in. So in today's session, I'm gonna mostly focus on these factors. Excuse me. So the refactoring, re-architecturing, and rebuilding are the most important things need to consider nowadays, because the world is changing fast, and you need to stick into the pattern. And then those strategies are going to be depend on a couple of factors. One of the factors, you need to think about what are the needs that your business has, and the skills your teams have, and where the application development lifecycle at the moment. Is it agile, or is it still waterfall, or it is you are running DevOps practices? And then you if you look at the architecture or the pattern that you are using, is it SOA architecture, or is it monolithic? All those things you have to discuss and think about before you think about the strategy to move to the cloud. And this is a kind of good diagram that you need to keep in your mind, that actually differentiate between migration versus modernization. So if you look at this diagram, I have three things available: architecture, and then infrastructure, and then the delivery. So the architecture, where you are going to architect, right? And how you're going to architect your software application. And the infrastructure, where your application is running on top of. And then delivery, how you are going to deliver it to the customer. So those things are the three pillars that you need to understand. So if you look at the early days of applications, we use monolithic architecture. And then we use physical servers to host them in on-premises environment. And then early days, we use waterfall model for the software development lifecycle. Now, when we are moving to the cloud, then what we did was actually we moved to the cloud with different architecture, what you call as service-oriented architecture. And then we move entire thing to virtual machines running on cloud, or maybe probably in on-premises environment. And then you adopt a kind of strategy for delivery for the customer called agile. So that is how we move to the cloud. This is where migration portion comes in, SOA, VM, and agile from on-prem. And you migrate, and now it is time to modernize. So if you are coming from here or here, doesn't matter. So you can decide how you're going to move depending on the factors that I said earlier. So in migration, you use these pattern, these pillars, right? And in modernization, what you do, you use microservices, containers, and DevOps. All those three are the buzzwords that you have to remember. So the microservices are really familiar and very famous nowadays. And then if you look at the architecture, it is the microservice, and then infrastructure is the containers, and then we have delivery, how we gonna deliver application to the customer. It is using DevOps practices. And I have a couple of things that you need to ask why you need to migrate, modernize or migrate. So one of the questions that a lot of people are asking me, why you should modernize without thinking about my migration. So the fundamental thing you can see, the last one is actually innovation is most important for nowadays organizations. So that is one of the greatest thing that I would recommend, because why you need to modernize to the modernize applications without migrate. And other than that, you can accelerate your digital journey because you can leverage a lot of things in cloud. And then you can fast time to market. You have DevOps practices. Because of that, you can very quickly kind of get a good approach of delivering your product to the customers and getting feedback loops, right? And then making the fixes and giving kind of a great product to your customers. And then most importantly, the improved user experience, and then optimize cost. And then you can achieve the maximum productivity. And then it is kind of a forward looking, because everything is going to be changed in the future. And then it is agile and faster, and the feedback loop is very important from the customer. So those are the things that you have to remember. And this is a kind of a graph I came up with, in order to understand kind of a capability or the cost, and then the time to migrate to the cloud. So when you are actually replacing, you can do it very quickly with existing application with software service model. And when you are rehosting, you can also do it a little bit quickly by using lift and shift model, or maybe rehost model, right? The strategy. And then when you are doing the modernization, you actually have to refactor and the re-architecture and rebuild. So with all those things, you are actually in the innovation line. So then only you can innovate faster, and get a great product to your customers faster. And in the long run, you will have a good opportunity with the current infrastructure in Azure and other cloud platforms as well. So remember, the cost is a little bit higher when you are modernizing, because you are coming from the ground level. And the time also will actually depend, right? Because you have to do a lot of work. But when you come to this level, it is actually kind of a long growth of innovation in your organization. So because of this time, you have to decide now whether you are going to modernize or migrate, because otherwise, let's say your company is deciding to modernize your application in another about another 5 years of time. So in 5 years of time, you are actually losing your market, and you are actually losing your entire product, when it's come to kind of a product that you are delivering to a customer. So one of the things that you need to remember, what is cloud native? A lot of people are asking. There's no specific definition for this one, but you can define it anyway. So one of the good thing about cloud native is kind of a thinking pattern that you are going to change about, you're going to think about how to construct kind of a critical business system, and changing your mind. And then the cloud native applications are actually designed to embrace traffic changes, large scale, and resiliency. And then the one of the good things about cloud native application is that you can get the full advantage of cloud service models. So that is one of the most important things that you have to remember. And there are a couple of definitions available. If you go to cloud native computing foundation, you will see this definition. So it says a lot of things about what is cloud native. And you have to remember that mostly the cloud native is really important, and it's binded up with a couple of keywords: agility, the containers, microservices, modern design, backing service automation. All those things are actually binded together, as well as DevOps. And yeah, so a couple of examples that I would show in this logos. Those logos are very familiar for you, right? Netflix and then Uber and WeChat. Those are really big products that we have nowadays. So everyone is using, millions of users are using concurrently. And these products are using a cloud native approach. If you go and search for their websites, they have published a lot of articles about them. And one of the things that Netflix is doing, they have microservices, more than 600 plus microservices running at the moment in production. And then every time, they deploy 100 times per day. And then if you look at Uber, they have thousands of microservices running and deploys thousands times a day, a week, right? And then if you look at WeChat, also kind of similar, 300 plus and deploys 1,000 times a day. So you can see how fast and agile and scalable their application system is. If you are using old technologies, you can't do those things. That's why you need to have modern technologies to do that. So this is kind of a idea for you to understand about the monolithic versus microservice. So we had monolithic architecture earlier days. We used that. So you have your user interface and then business logic and data access layer. All those three are in one application, and you are hosting this entire application in one virtual machine. And then your database is somewhere else, or probably in the same virtual machine. And that is called what do you call as a monolithic architecture. And with the microservices architecture, you have a lot of microservices running for each and every small components. Say for an example, for shopping cart, this is running for an example for a e-commerce website shopping cart. This is for shopping cart. This is for payment module. Likewise, you may have a couple of microservices running and communicating each other to build entire application. And then we have isolated database for each and every microservices as well. So that is, in a nutshell, how microservices are going to be looks like. And this is where you have the innovations comes in, because as I showed you earlier in Netflix and then Uber, they have millions of billions of people and they are very rich companies, right? They have good profit margins, and then they have good revenue coming in, because that is because the success is actually the entire architecture that they are using and the entire infrastructure they are using. It is basically cloud native. That's why they have good growth strategy in the future, and then they can grow very quickly. I'm not going to discuss in depth to the microservices, because the microservices have a lot of things to discuss. Especially we can discuss about containerization when you think about microservices. But today's session, I'm going to focus on platform as a service offerings, and then function as a service offerings, which you can use to create kind of modernized applications in your organization. So if you have applications that you want to modernize, you can first of all think about using platform as a service offerings, and then function as a service offerings, and then you can even think about containerizations as well. All right, so platform as a service, the word PaaS. So it is simple and really quick way to deploy applications to the cloud. So within today's session, I'll show you how quickly you can do that. And then you deploy the application to the cloud, and the cloud will take care about the runtime and how it is going to run. You don't need to worry about what is the infrastructure and updating infrastructure. Everything is done by Microsoft, by Azure, right? And then you can create auto scale options up to number of instances. Let's say when there's a high demand, up to which much of instances that you want to scale. And when there's a low demand, how you are going to scale in, and then how you're going to scale out when there's a high demand. And then we have the one of the things that the one of the disadvantage when we are using platform as services, actually we can actually install custom system dependencies. If you want to kind of create a DLL library running in the behind, it is really hard to do that. There are a couple of ways you can do it, but it is a little bit harder. So the installing custom dependencies are going to be a little bit harder. That's why if you are using DLL custom DLL files in the background for your application, then you might consider about going with virtual machines. And this is somewhat similar to, kind of a serverless computer. You don't see a server, and then kind of similar, but it's still not serverless. So this is the shared responsibility model. When you think about all these, services we have on-prem, you have to manage everything. The red color is you have to manage it, and green color is what cloud provider is managing for you. And if you look at the infrastructure as service, IaaS, so that is the migration, the way that you migrate, right? So you migrate something to cloud, then it is IaaS. And when you are modernizing, it is platform as a service. You can see in IaaS, you have to do a lot of work, right? You have to manage couple of layers, virtual machine, operating system, runtime, and everything. And the only part Microsoft is managing for you is compute, networking, and storage, the hardware layer. But when you are going to platform as a service offerings, you are going to think about only about the application and data access layer. So the rest of the things, runtime, operating system, virtual machine, compute, and everything else is going to be, take care about Microsoft, right? So that is one of the good thing to know about. So that's why a lot of software companies, the startups are very quickly creating applications, and then they are creating their business very quickly with the pay-as-you-go model and the platform as service offerings. They don't need to have huge development team and infrastructure team. That is one of the good thing when you are thinking about the infrastructure as service versus platform as service. If you have infrastructure as service, you have to have a couple of administrators to manage the entire infrastructure. But here you can have a couple of developers. You develop the application, right? Even one person can do everything and then deploy the application, and they can run the business very quickly. So when you think about the app services, it is really robust, kind of a service that Microsoft has. And you can create a web applications, REST APIs, and mobile backends using app services. So this is not only for web applications, as I said, you have to remember you can create even REST APIs and then mobile backends, everything, right? So then you can actually develop any kind of application using following languages like .NET, Java, Ruby, Node.js, PHP, Python. And then applications can execute and scale. So and they are fully managed and they are in sandbox environment. So I'm gonna not gonna deeply talk about all those stuffs, right? The web apps are going to be kind of a hosting service or hosting package, right? I would say it is a kind of a quick way that, as I said, you can quickly create application and deploy it very quickly, and then you can scale it, as well as it integrates with Visual Studio. You can directly publish it from Visual Studio if your favorite tool is Visual Studio, and provide open platform for many languages, as well as I showed you earlier. Couple of advantages are like near instant deployment, and then you can have SSL and custom domains if you want to add custom domains, and you have web jobs, and then we can scale to large machines without redeploying the applications. And these are a couple of key features. It supports multiple languages, and then you can even leverage DevOps optimization, where you can use Azure DevOps, Visual Studio Team Services, GitHub, Docker Hub, all those stuff. And then a couple of other things are like globally scalable and highly available. And you can also connect with your SaaS platforms, as well as your on-prem data platforms as well. And then other than that, security, if you look at the security, it is ISO, SOC compliant, and application templates are available, right? And then other than that, like, think about the application templates. You can even create applications like WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. So from Azure, templates available with web apps or app services. And then we have Visual Studio integration, and then API features, as well as serverless code, right? So you can run on-demand codes without having any explicit provisions of infrastructure. And then we have something called app service plan. This is really important to remember. So this is your hosting plan, actually, not the application. So I'm going to show you a diagram here. So this is a application service plan or app service plan. When you create app service plan, you are going to define a number of cores. Basically, you can't see the number of cores. You can see only the equivalent of the virtual machine name, and then you can select the RAM, and then you create application service, and on top of that application service plan, you can create multiple web apps. So you can leverage one app service plan to run multiple web applications. So because you can share the entire plan with the others, because let's say this web application, the application one, let's say this one is currently utilizing only 20% of CPU, and then other one can take the same one. Likewise, you can leverage entire capacity without wasting the CPU time. And then other than that, we have this concept called this deployment slot. I'll be showing it today, where you can create staging, production, dev, test, QA staging, and then you can create host names and contents and configurations, all those stuff. So you can have production environment as well as staging, QA, and very quickly you can swap there. So let's say you have staging and production, you can swap between those two. So if this is currently being tested, then if it is done, you can swap it to the production. And then yeah, you can use GitHub to get your source control, right? I'll show you today that. And yep, so I think we can move to our demo today. I think let's go to the demo. So I'm gonna show you a couple of things that you have to remember. First of all, I'll show you how to create a web app in your environment, right, in Azure. So let's go to Azure, and I'm gonna say web app, right? So if you search for app services, so you can go here and then click this one, add, and I'm gonna create a new web app. Let me select one of the resource groups available. Let me select this one I have already created, ACS Azure Web App RG. Let me give it a name, ACS AUG Meetup, right? So that is available. And then you give it the name. This is going to be globally available, and it should be unique because it is kind of a URL that you are getting. You can change this as you want. If you want your custom domain to map, you can do that. And then I'm going to use publish method to code. So basically I'm going to use code as publish method. Or if you want, you can use Docker, right? If you are using Docker, you don't need to worry about some of the stuffs available here. So say for an example, I'm going to use code, and the runtime stack would be, I'm going to demonstrate today, is .NET Core. And then you have to select the operating system as well. But if you are going with Docker container, you can see. So we don't need to worry about the runtime stack. It is going to be faded away, right? You can see, you can't see it there now because Docker will take care about the other stuff such as runtime, and only you have to select this operating system. I'm gonna use code and then Linux as my operating system, and then I'm gonna use Southeast Asia. And then after that, the region is selected, and then I have to select the app service plan. As I said, this is the app service plan that I showed you earlier, this one. And I can, create a new one, right? So I can either select the existing one. You can see it has already selected my previous one as well. I'm going to create a new one. Let's say ACS app plan. Click OK. And then you have to select the SKU and sizing. You have to go here and change the size. So there are a couple of different options available. You can either use dev tested environments, right? So this is for development and testing. You can see you will get a free 60 minutes a day compute with 1 GB memory. It is entirely free. And then you have something called B1. So where you are getting 100 days use Azure compute units, right? So this is very equivalent to Azure Virtual Machine A series. That's why I said earlier, you can't see the number of cores, right? Just go to the, go and check for 100 ACUs equivalent, right? So just this is Azure compute units. A number of, how many number of, capacity of RAM is actually 1.7. And if you are doing production type of workload, you have to go with that. And one thing that you have noticed when you are going with, these set of, options, you can see in this place, you can't see some of the features are not available. If you select this one, you have these features. For an example, custom domains and manual scales is available with this one. But if you go to production, you will get custom domain and SSL, auto scale, staging slots, daily backups, all those stuff. So that is how the pricing and the TI is going to be different. And you have isolated environment as well. You can create some application isolated environment, because you have to remember that one of the things, this entire app service plan is actually be shared between other users as well. That means including other tenants. Say for an example, there's one customer, right? One Azure customer here. They can also share the same infrastructure, but it is isolated in terms of sandbox. But if you want kind of a completely isolated environment, you have to go with this one. Then it will give you a dedicated machine for you. But this one is shared between other users as well. So I'm gonna select the production P1 V2, and it is going to cost me around 83.95. And it has custom domain and auto scale as well as staging. So if you go with this one, it is very cheap, but you can't see auto scale is not available, and you have to manually scale it when there's a high demand. And then other things like deployment slots, I'm going to demonstrate to you today, is not available. I'm going to click this one, apply. Let's very quickly create this one, and let me create it. It is validating. I'm going to click create. So think I click twice, not sure what will happen. So yeah, so until it is under deployment, I'll create my application and show you. So when you are creating applications in Visual Studio, I'm gonna not create it from the scratch, and I'm gonna show you kind of a way that you can do it. So you create a mesh project from here, and I'm gonna use ASP.NET Core because I have selected .NET Core. You select next and give it a name, ACS test app, and then create. And you can create a web app, let's say web application. So this way you can create a web application very quickly in Visual Studio. So I'm not gonna use this one because I have already created one application. So very similar one. So if you want, you can run this one from here and check whether it is working. So it is giving you kind of a template for you to get started. Yeah, I think until it is building, I think this is complete. You can see very quickly it was deployed and then succeeded. I'm gonna go to resource groups and check whether it is deployed. This is my web app. Very quickly, I'm gonna go here. You can see the app service plan here, and then I have my app service. So that's what I said earlier. If you want another app service to create another web application, say for an example, you have API, mobile backend, and then you have website, a front end. You can have 3 web apps with the same app service plan. So you can share it the same. So if you go here, you can see my plan here, a number of apps available in the slot. You can see this is the application that I have created, and it is Linux, and the name, and it is running. I'm gonna quickly jump into my this one and show you. You can see entire thing, right? If you go to this URL very quickly, you can see it has created some kind of a dummy content. And then if you want, you can check. If you want, you can go to scale up, and then you can change it to a different plan very quickly without any downtime. Let's say this is not enough, you go here, select it and apply, and it is going to change. And if you want to scale out, you can create manual scaling, how many number of instances that you are going to scale. Or maybe you can create a custom auto scale rule based on the metric. Like for an example, let's say add a rule here. If I put average CPU utilization, you can see metric namespace, and then metric name CPU percentage, or maybe you can see what else you have, data in, data out. So if the CPU usage is going to be a little bit, let's say higher, right? Let's go down here. You can see greater than 70% of this entire app service within the 10 minutes of duration. You want to scale the instance number of instances. That means, so if you look at this example, you will have 2 instances like this if you scale up to 2 instances, and the traffic is divided between those 2 machines, so in the infrastructure level. So that's how you can scale actually out. And then remember that when you are scaling out, make sure that you have another rule. You can add multiple rule to scale in as well. Otherwise, what will happen? It will stay, let's say, in high demand time, it will scale out, and then there are 2 instances running, and then there's no demand, it will be staying the same. Make sure that if the CPU percentage is going down, let's say for an example, it is going more less than 30%, you can scale in very quickly. So number of instances, right? So the instances mean number of app service that you are going to deploy from the backend, right? So you don't see it, it will automatically do it for you. And if you want, you can do it manually as well from here. You put the number of instances and save it, right? So auto scale will save your money, right? Basically, if there's no demand. And I think my application is running, right? So this is a very simple application. You know how to create it. I'm gonna close that. I have already created an application. This one I have a little bit, I modified it a little bit in order to show you some, magic here. So let me run it and show it to you first. So today I'm not gonna publish this using Visual Studio. I'm gonna use GitHub and publish to the GitHub, and GitHub will take care of my entire build process, and it will push it to my entire, web app application available in Azure. So that is my application. You saw it. So there's one way you can do it. You can go here and publish from here. You can right click here. Again, I'm going to show you, right click on project and publish. And then what you can do, what happened? Okay, publish, and then I'm going to start. And you can select Azure and then App Service Plan Linux, right? And since I have already registered, you can see it will, show my, you can see my application that I have created, ACS Azure August Meetup, right? And from here you can directly publish. I'm not gonna do that because this is really easy, right? Everyone can do it. And whenever you change something here, you have to, every time you have to, publish it again and again. If you're a couple of developers working on your project, then it is going to be harder because you have to do it every time again. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add this entire code to source controller. So I'm going to add this to source controller. Gonna add this to source control, add solution to source control. And let me go to index page and do a small change. Let me add a small comment here. So just to make sure that is going to pick up, right? So now it's changed. Now I'm gonna commit this entire change. Let me go here and commit this change. My first commit. So this is going to commit to my local Git repository. So once it is done, you are asking to commit to the online repository as well. What you can do, you can click sync here. I'm gonna connect with my GitHub. You go to publish and click publish to GitHub, and select my GitHub account. It has already suggested me a name for my repository. So web app AUG pre-demo, right? I'm gonna use this one and click let's say demo 2 because I have already created one. I'm gonna use web app demo 2 and click publish. So it will publish to my GitHub repository. So let's see what will happen. In the meantime, okay, let me go to my GitHub. So let me refresh it. Okay, now you can see it is coming here. Yeah, I think it's totally done. I'm gonna remove this comment and do a commit once again and save this code. I'm gonna commit that back again. Committing again, right? Commit all, and I'm gonna sync it with my online repository and push. So yeah, it is going to push to master branch, right? So basically it is going to push to master branch. I'm gonna go to my repository and I'm gonna refresh it. Yeah, I think it is done. And here you have the repository. You have web app demo and everything is there, right? What I'm going to do, I'm going to open my web app and I'm going to go here and go to deployment center. So I go to deployment center And then you have a lot of deployment options available. Either you can use Azure DevOps, GitHub, Bitbucket, right? Or maybe local Git or FTP. So one of these ways you can deploy your application. I'm going to use GitHub. It has already registered with my account. You can either, if you're doing it, the first time, you have to authenticate it. I'm going to click continue, and I'm going to use GitHub Actions. So if you don't know what is GitHub Actions, it's kind of a build environment, right? So either you can use Azure DevOps pipelines or maybe Kudu services, right? I'm going to use GitHub Actions and continue. And this is my account, and this is my repository that I'm going to do. Let's say search for my repository. I think, what's the name of the repository? It's web app AUD demo. Let's search for it. Web app. Yeah, so this is the web application that I have created, and it is showing only one branch at the moment. I'm going to use this one, and .NET Core it's has already decided what to do, and I'm going to click publish and finish. So what it will does, it will actually create a kind of a GitHub workflow action. You can see currently there's no workflow at the moment, right? I'll show you what will happen. I think, yeah, it has already started now, right? You can see in the previous time when I was coming here, it wasn't there. So this is GitHub workflow that it has created kind of a YAML file. So this is a kind of a trigger. Let's say for an example, you are changing something in this, entire source code. It will automatically reflect to the entire, branch, and then it will show you. If you go to actions, you can see how the build operation is happening. You can see at the moment my application is building. So I don't need to build it or locally and then publish it to the cloud. So what it will does, it will automatically build entire code, source code back again, and then it will automatically reflect to my web app, right? Let's see what is happening here once this is done. Okay, it will take a couple of time. It is still building. Yeah, you can see at the moment this is building the first time, right? So it is done now. Let's check my URL back again. Okay, I think it's still not. That you can see now. So the application that I have created, right? So in my environment, it is already done. Now it is running without any problem. Now you can see that everything is running and working fine. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to comment out this line and remove this part because I have a nice slider here. I'm going to uncomment and then save it, and back again. I'm going to, first of all, I have to pull the entire thing because the Azure environment added this YAML file, and I'm going to actually get a pull request. Excuse. And then it is updated. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to commit back again. Adding slide, and then I'm going to commit back again and sync it to the online one, push it to the online GitHub repository. It is pushing, and you will see now quickly if you go here, this is the previous one. I'm going to refresh this one. It will automatically create a new build action. You can see in the workflow. Now the adding slider is the comment that I have added. It is going to now push back to my Azure environment. So let's see what will happen in a couple of minutes. Okay, it's adding now. Okay. So you can see very quickly you can create a web app, and then you can create a GitHub account. Then you can keep the GitHub account for your source repository, and then you can connect it with your web application. And then all the entire build operation can also be done here. So this is not only where you can do it if you are using Azure DevOps. This is going to be really seamless than this one, right? So it is done now. I'm going to refresh this probably. Now you can see the slider is coming, right? So this wasn't there in the previous one because I have commented it out. So you can see how quickly you can do it. And then I'm going to do a small other demo. I'm going to go to my deployment slots. I'm going to create a staging slot. I'm going to add a new slot here. Let's say staging, or let's say a QA environment, right? Say QA. env. And I don't want to clone any settings from the current one, so I'm going to add a new slot here. So this is going to be a different slot. What you can do when you are deploying applications, you can deploy it to different slots. At the meantime, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my web app and do a small change in my application. Where's my views, pages, and index.cs, HTML. Okay, I'm gonna add bootstrap components. Let's add a small component from here. I think this is the old one. Okay, let's go to documentation. We'll get some components. Okay, what do you think? We'll get something like spinners. Let's add something like this one. I'm gonna copy here and change this code. I'm gonna edit this one. I'm gonna edit this one in GitHub for the easiest, right? So either you can do it from your Visual Studio as well. I'm gonna put that here, and then I'm gonna add a comment adding a new spinner, and then I'm gonna commit this to a different branch because I don't want to put it to my master branch. I'm gonna create a branch called QA branch, right? I'm gonna propose the change. Okay, I don't want to create a pull request now, so it is already in my account, right? So I think so I don't need to pull request. So let me go here to my master branch. I think if I go to QA branch, let me go to change. You can see the change is there, right? So what I'm going to do, right? Let me go here. I think my deployment slot is already created. I'm going to click this deployment slot. It will create a new, open a new tab, because you can see here, if you look at closely, this is my previous application. I think it is visible here. You can see it is, you go to overview tab. This is a ACS AUG meetup. And if you go to deployment slots and you select the deployment slot, it's going to show you QA env. This is a app service slot, right? For this slot, I'm going to have another deployment from my GitHub with a different branch. I'm going to use same GitHub. Let's go to GitHub and then actions, and then from repository the same one, right? Web app demo 2, and the branch would be my QA branch. You can clearly see the QA branch here. And then okay, so it is asking me there's the workflow, because you can remember that the previous workflow already there. And I'm going to say that then override the workflow definition, and then continue it and finish it. So it will automatically override the previous one because it is coming from the previous environment. So now in branch, you can see master branch and QA branch. If you select the QA branch, you can see the actions. It will automatically show it to you here. Yeah, at the same time, let me, it is under deployment. So let's see what is happening. Yeah, I think until it is going to deploy, just to give you a kind of idea about the cost about application, services. If you go to Azure Calculator, you can go here and select one of these instances, right? Depending on your tier. If you look at, there are a number of tiers: free, shared, basic, standard, premium, isolated. So let's say you are going with the basic one, you have these tiers: B1, B2, B4. You can see number of codes available here in the calculator, right? If you go shared one also, you can see it has shared codes. If you go to something like a premium V2 that I am using right now, you can see this one contains one course, 3.5 GB RAM, and application storage of 250 GB, and it costs only 2 cents per hour, right? And if you are running this for entire month, it will cost about 126 for 46, right? So if you want other SSL connections, you need to get them separated, right? I think up to 5 or something free. Sorry, yeah. So that's how the cost is going to be change. If you are using Linux, it is going to be a little more very cheaper, right? You can see it is 83 only. And remember that the one of these shared tiers is not available for Linux. You can see shared is not going to be available for Linux, right? So that's one of the things that you have to remember. Yeah, I think my deployments is completed. Let me go to overview. Now you will have a QA branch URL. This is the new URL. This is the previous one. You can see ACS AUG meetup. And this one is ACS QA QA env. If you go down, you can see the spinner here. And if you go to this one, there's no spinner, right? So likewise, you can do changes to your branch. And whenever you want to change, let's say that this is under QA and it is done and it is now moving to the production or maybe staging. What you can do, you can go to the deployment slots back again in your app service, right? If you go here, I'm gonna go deployment slots. What I'm going to do, just notice that here, this is the original application. I'm gonna swap, right? I'm gonna have swap operation here. I'm gonna swap from source is QA to target this one, right? I'm gonna swap entire thing. So if you want, you can perform a swap with configurations as well. So I'm not gonna do anything for the configurations. So when you are swapping, what will happen? This will go to this one. Sorry, QA will go to the production, right? Excuse me. So we'll see what will happen. Yeah, it is still working on it. Let me refresh this. You can see that it is not still available here. Okay, now we can see it comes, right? The URL is the same. If you look at this one also, you can see it is changed because the both are going to be different, right? This is going to be the QA going to be for the production is going to be for the QA, right? So that way, we can see that's changed the URL, and then we have the previous URL, right? So this way you can create a kind of a application and then publish it to the GitHub, and you can manage QA environment and then production environment very quickly. You can see under very limited short period of time, I had done all these configurations very quickly. So if you are using Azure DevOps, it is going to be a little bit more easier than this one with the release pipelines and all these build pipelines. Yeah, so with that, I think we are coming to the conclusion of app services, and I hope you got an idea how it works. This is really straightforward way to build an application. And as I said, you can see that very quickly you can deploy without any problems, from here to here. And there are a lot of other, configurations available in app service if you go and check. Because of the time limitation, we don't have much time to go through all of these things, right? So this is what I said. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah.
Because I realized there's a good question actually related to what you just showed.
Okay. Is there a question?
It's better. Okay.
Okay. Which one is the question? Yeah, so is using Fundo better to prevent downtime in deployment slot switching? Actually, when you are doing deployment switch slotting, there's no downtime, right? So you can select the traffic here. So there are a couple of ways that you can avoid if basically there's no downtime going to happen, right? So the previous one will be running as it is. So the new one will be there, when you swap it. So if you want, you can use traffic between here. Let's say, for an example, you want to move traffic between QA and this one for about, let's say, 30, 70, you can say. So 30% of people are going to this one and 70% people are going to this one. So basically, in the swapping operation, there's no downtime. You can see that in the previous example as well, there wasn't any change happen. Even the application was working fine, right? So Fundo can also be used to do all those stuff as well. That's a good question. I think I answered your question. Yeah, just try out when you are swapping. There's no downtime. I don't have experience about downtime. Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
You have 30 minutes left.
Yeah, we have very timely, small time, right? So we are coming to the last session. Of course, it is functions as service, right? It is serverless that everybody is talking about service. I think this is going to be the next big thing in compute, right? In cloud, because early days you came up with virtual machines, and then we came up with platform as service, and then now people are coming up with ideas like serverless, right? A lot of people are using serverless for applications nowadays. So serverless is a kind of a where you don't have a server. Actually, you don't have a server. So because you are not creating a dedicated application plan, right? So, but you are creating a consumption plan. I'll show you how you are doing it. It is really simpler than PaaS, right? I'll show you how we can quickly create a web API. And then it is event driven. And remember that functions are event driven. So it based on, trigger and action. Let's say there's a trigger and there's action, right? So for an example, I'll show you a couple of demos today. And also it is serverless. As I said, it is automatically highly scalable. One of the things that you have to remember, serverless is really highly scalable because you don't have a server and you don't need to worry about managing infrastructure. It will automatically scale up to number of instances. I think about 200 instances you can go up to, right? So you don't have to worry about the entire CPU, the performance and everything. You don't even talk about them, right? And that is, as I said, billing based on consumption. So the functions are really cheap because it is the consumption based billing. And then available, the problem with functions is actually still it is available for a couple of technologies only. And then we have combined, we can combine with microservices. As I said earlier, a lot of people are using functions to combine microservices, and then those are actually used to create event driven APIs as well. So function is something like this. You have a code and you have event and data, and then you have Azure function. That's how the logo is created, right? For you to understand. Keep it in mind. You have the code. You just write the code. Don't worry about the infrastructure and everything, the runtime. And then you have the event and you have the data. You have the function. And you can run codes based on HTTP request and then schedule kind of a cron job or maybe kind of a job schedule, and then process new modifications. So for an example, if there's some different or modification in Cosmos DB document, and then if there's something change in storage, and if there's something change in queue storage, and you can create a kind of application to do some actions. If there's a trigger, the change is the trigger, and the action should be something. So in the today's session, I'm going to show you that kind of example. And then you can respond to event-driven, grids, and event grids as a kind of event-based mechanism like subscriber and publisher method. And then remember this is a kind of a Azure service, and then response to high volume of Azure events and all those stuff. And I'm going to quickly go through, and you can write Azure functions using a variety of languages like C#, Java, Python, and then PHP and JavaScript, right? And then also supports PS, PowerShell and shell scripts, right? And you just only write the business logic, right, in functions. You don't write any applications like UI based applications. It is kind of a the backend layer, right, that you are going to write. So this is kind of a way that you can integrate functions to several different services available. So you can create notification hubs, event grid, event hubs, Cosmos DB, service bus, even Twilio, third-party SMS platform. And then you have queues, blobs, tables, and everything. So if there's something change here, or if there's any trigger, excuse me, and then we can create a kind of action using Azure function. And then scaling and hosting is going to be taken care of by 2 or 3. Basically now there are 3 types available. One is consumption, and the other one is premium and app service plan. Just like in web apps, we can even use app service plan. So there are several reasons why you need to use app service plans if you are using Azure functions. Remember that if you are using app service plan, you have to pay the app service plan pricing, which is monthly cost. But if you are going with consumption, it is based on number of executions or number of requests that is coming to the function. And if you are going with premium plan, I'll show you. The premium plan is going to be kind of a way that you can use a premium capabilities, right, with consumption opportunity. But in consumption plan, you have some small issue, what you call as a cold start. Remember the name? So you remember vehicle starting in the morning with cold start. It is something like that because there's no actual infrastructure dedicated for your application. It is going to search for particular infrastructure in the Azure, infrastructure, and then only it is going to execute. Because of that, there's a kind of something called cold start, right? Remember the word. And the cold start is actually avoided in premium plan. I'll show you in a couple of minutes later. All right, so I'm gonna quickly jump through because we don't have much time. So we have trigger and then function app and then execution. And there are a lot of trigger types available: Cosmos DB, HTTP triggers, GitHub triggers, all those things. And then you can create input and output bindings from files. You can get a file from here and put it here and then save it somewhere. Likewise, you can get input bindings and output bindings where you're gonna output something. And yeah, bindings, as I said, it is going to be a way that you are going to connect data between. And kind of example here, you have schedule trigger, Cosmos DB trigger. There's some trigger happen, some change happen here, and it is going to trigger the function, and it is going to upload to the blob storage, and then create some events or something like that, right? So likewise, you can create kind of a function architecture. So there are something called durable functions where you can create stateless applications. These are less applications, right? Functions are going to be stateless, but if you want to create stateful applications, you can create stateful applications using durable functions. Search for durable functions. We don't have much time to go through everything. So it is kind of a pattern you can use. It is a kind of extended version of functions available. You can create a couple of functions and then pass in data to kind of a blob storage or maybe table storage, and that data is consumed by another one. It is kind of a producer consumer pattern, right? And those are patterns available: chaining, fan in, fan out, and then async HTTP APIs. Those are the ways that you can use in order to create durable functions. All right, very quickly we'll jump to our session, and I'll show you how to create a function in Visual Studio. You go here. Let me create new one. So I'm going to create a new project. So if you go here and search for function, right? You select the function and then click that and give it a name. I'm going to quickly click it because just to show you. And when you are creating, you have to select which kind of functions that you are going to use, right? You can use .NET Core framework, and you can create blob triggers, Cosmos DB triggers, and even event grid triggers and HTTP triggers, and likewise, right? So, and also timer triggers. You can create a kind of scheduled cron job and create it. And this one will only for C#, right? So you can create C# functions here. So I have already created one, right? I have already created one here in my account. You can see this is one of the one of the functions that I have created. This is actually a blob trigger, right? So if I zoom in a little bit, okay, in this code you can see it is a really simple code, right? So we have two bindings, right? So we have input binding and then output binding. So what I do here in this blob trigger, so in a specific blob, right? So call in a specific blob account. So at this one I am using the current storage account, right, for the particular function. And I'm gonna get the folder name sample work items, right, inside this container, right, or what you call as folder inside this sample workspace container. If something uploaded to this one, I'm gonna copy that exactly the same thing to another container called output. So that is what's gonna happen here. I get the input and then I'm gonna stream that to the output to this one using my blob.copy copy to an output trigger, right? So this is my action. This is the trigger, right? So when it is running in Azure account, so it will automatically do the task for you. So since we have very little time, I'll show you how to publish it and show you the current demo that I have already created. And what you can do, you can use publish here, and then you can create a new account. Let's say, yeah, let's create a new one, new publisher profile. I'm going to use Azure. new Azure function, let's say whatever, right? I'm going to use Windows, and then it is showing my subscription. Yeah, I have a couple of functions already available. I'm going to select a different resource group. I'm not sure why it is not showing. And I'm going to create a new Azure function. From here also you can do it very quickly. I'm going to select my existing Azure function, Azure Fund Demo. And then the plan type, you can see consumption, premium, and app service plan. I'm going to use consumption plan. And then you can use this all information, right? The name of the function and everything, and you can create it. I'll very quickly create this and publish, right? And in the meantime, I'll show you the pricing, how it is going to price. Okay, it is creating my app service. Okay, let me go here and check. Go here. Okay, all right. Still it is waiting for the deployment. All right, in the meantime, let me go to the pricing calculator and show you. If you go to pricing calculator and add Azure functions, right, you can search for Azure functions and add it. What you can do, you can go here and select the country, and then you have the 2 tiers available here. You can't see Azure App Service Plan because it is very similar to what we had done in App Services, right, in the previous one. So if you go with consumption, you can see up to 1 million executions are free, and for 400,000 GBs per second executions, this much of execution are for free, right? Remember, this execution is limited to 5 minutes, right? So if you want to extend, you can extend up to 10 minutes. That is the maximum. And also it is going to cost with the memory size, right? Let's say the application is running in the Azure function to create some kind of report, right, at night. So for the execution that you are doing, let's say you are doing that execution about 30 days per month, you can see there's no cost. I have created a couple of let's say a couple of applications with this one without any cost, right? Kind of applications, there's no cost, right? Because it has 1 million experience, like I was saying, like a kind of application that create and generate a report every night. So you only run it 30 days, right? And then let's say your application is running for 100 milliseconds, right? Or maybe 1000 milliseconds, right? Or 10,000. You can see there's no cost, right? So but if your execution is going to be exceeding this amount, you will get a kind of a cost, right? Let me pause it. You can see exceeding this amount, you will get a cost, right? So basically it is going to be yeah, so it depends on the time of execution as well. You can see here 400 milliseconds of execution, it's not gonna go that much of time, right? So that's how the pricing is going to be. Go and search for Azure functions pricing. You can get an idea a little more in depth for execution, how much it is going to cost, right? And I think this one has created, yeah, already created. I'm gonna click and finish, and I'm in consumption plan, right? And I forgot to show you in the premium plan, right? It is going to cost you for a number of instances. So those are called pre-warmed instances because this is going to avoid the cold start, right? Search for cold start. This is a really good word, right? You need to learn. Don't have much time to go through cold start today. And basically, yeah. So in cold start, it will take some time to, warm up your consumption application. In the consumption plan, your application is going to take some time. But if you go with premium, it is going to create a pre-warmed instance, right? And there's no delay. But here, if you go with the consumption plan, there's a small delay. It is not a big delay. Basically, it is a couple of milliseconds, right? But it is a big delay when you consider about the latency and everything. So that's the reason why there's a delay. Is actually it is not dedicated for you. And I'm going to publish this. Let's publish this quickly. And I need to create these 2 containers in my blob storage. I think this one also already done. So I asked to use the blob storage account that used for the same. I'm not sure which blob storage account that it has selected. Let me go and check what is the blob storage account. Oh my god, I forgot to check it. Team probably is going to take one of this blob storage account that I have already used. Okay, let me check. Probably it might be in this storage account. Okay, we'll check once it is deployed. It's now deploying. And another thing you have to remember, you can create functions app using Portal as well, right? We don't have much time to go through that. Remember, you can do it from Portal as well. You don't need to use code, editor like Visual Studio. So probably we'll do another session in future with regards to how we can create and leverage functions. Okay, still publishing. Yeah, until it is going to publish, let me go to my session and give you a couple of thoughts about the other application services that you can use. So if you want to modernize your application, you can either use container instances, something called Azure container instances. We'll do a session regarding this one as well in the future. And then static websites, it is really new. It is still in preview. And then you have logic caps, DevOps, Kubernetes, and Service Fabric, and then cognitive service. Those are the modernizing, those are the components or the services are available for you to modernize applications very quickly, right? So you can see I don't have in this slide, in this list, I don't have virtual machines, right? Because it is really old, right? So don't go with old school, just go with, new ways of deployment model, modernizing application. Then you will be able to, get a lot of, innovations to be done, right? Okay, it takes some time. Anyway, I think I have already created the same application and deployed earlier because you don't have much time. I'll show that. So this is the same application running, right? So I have the container here in this blob storage account. So I have already created the output and input. You can see in the output, I don't have anything. And in the input, what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload a file to here. So I'm going to add a file. Let's add a small file here. Okay, I'm gonna add this file, this PDF. I have already uploaded it. And what will happen from the source code, you remember, something has happened. Okay, anyway, so we'll see what will happen, right? So this file will automatically copy to the output, right? So it will keep some time. You can see that since it is in the cold start, it will keep couple of milliseconds of delay in order to copy that, right? Usually it comes here. Okay, we'll see what is happening. Okay, I have already uploaded it. Not sure why it is still not showing. Okay, I'm not sure whether this one took my storage account. Thing up. Okay, let's refresh once again. I don't have analytics available to check here because I have not enabled analytics. Function is running here. Okay, let me go to overview and check back again. Not showing any analytics. Let's go back. The container output. Yeah, here you can see, right? So you can see there's a small delay. So that's why I said, in function apps, when you are, working with the consumption plan, so there's something called cold start. Google search it, as I said. The cold start is going to happen for a couple of milliseconds, and then it will execute after that, right? Because there's no dedicated, virtual machine or dedicated hardware for this. You can see now the same copy of the same file is actually available here. So that is what this small code is doing, right? So within a couple of codes you can do is this is the binding, and this is the trigger and action. Sorry, action, right? So I did. So that's how this code works. Very quickly you can do it, with blob trigger, all these things available. And one of the things that I want to remember and recommend you to do when you are creating applications, let's say for an example, let's say you have an application that is running. Let's say you have an application that is running every day for 12 midnight, right? So 12 midnight. So this is a kind of application that is generating report. Let's say you have a database here, a sales database, and then your task is to generate a report at 12 midnight. What you can do, either you can use a virtual machine and create a web app and do it, right? What will happen, your virtual machine is running entire day, right? And let's say 24 hours a day, and only at 12 midnight, right? Only at specific time, let's say for a 1 hour or maybe a couple of minutes, let's say 30 minutes, only it is going to available and run this application. So instead what you can do, you don't need to do this one, you create a function app, right? So function app, and function app, you are generating this data and creating an output of report within couple of minutes, right? It does not take 5 minutes or 10 minutes because of the load available, because it is getting entire infrastructure and, as much as possible. So, and it will execute and then do the task, and then it will disappear, right? So you don't have your dedicated one. And if you are running this for 30 days, right, and you are running this every day 30 days, and there's no cost, it is completely free, right? Depending on the memory usage as well, right? So remember that you can use leverage Azure functions to do those tasks and do quick deployment for your applications based on event driven mechanisms. All right, so that's pretty much we have to discuss. Just go and search for durable functions as well, right? So we don't have much time to go through everything. So if you have any questions regarding Azure functions or web applications, and just ping me from LinkedIn or maybe from my Twitter account, right? So I'll help you because we had only limited time to discuss a couple of things, right? So yep, I think that's pretty much for the session today. And I have a couple of gifts for you, right? Go and download this book. If you are a beginner to Azure development, you can download this ebook from this link. So this is Azure Quick Start Developer Guide for .NET Developers, and this is Cloud Native ebook, right? Just go and check for this ebook, right? This is how you can architecture cloud native applications. And then there's another one, serverless apps and architecture patterns using Azure implementation. You can use Azure functions and learn about how you can use serverless technology with this ebook. Yeah, take a screenshot and go to this URLs. Once again, I will show you, and then you can learn a lot about all those stuffs discussed today. Yeah, I think, yeah. So with that, let me check if there's any questions available. Discard. Okay. I think, yeah, I think there's no questions. All right.